You're listening to Hidden Roll, the podcast where we introduce you to the brains behind your favorite toys, games, and all things play. Before we jump into this episode, we'd like to give special thanks to POP, peopleofplay.com, the one-stop hub for all toy and game inventors. Without them, this podcast would not be possible.
You are listening to Hidden Roll, the podcast that introduces you to the brains behind your favorite toys, games, and all things play. I am artist and engineer David Yakos.
And I'm game designer Branson Faustini, and together we get to talk to the people who make the world of fun.
And speaking of the world of fun, today we've got the special privilege of having Tanya Thompson, all the way from the great land of Canada, joining us. Thank you, Tanya, for being here.
Hey, I'm excited to be here. Thanks, guys.
We're thrilled. You're one of probably my longest friend in the toy and game industry, and I've had the privilege to work with you over the years. And just to give people a little bit of background as to what you're working on today, what your position is, you are Senior Director of Inventor Relations and Innovation for Hasbro Games. That is, I think, the longest title anybody on this show has had, but that might be a good snapshot for the amount of work that you do.
Yeah, it's a lot of work when you work in games for the biggest, largest game company in the world. So I don't know why there's such a long title, but there it is.
Well, I've had the privilege to play you a number of games, and you are one of the most competitive people I know. And I always thought, well, I have to win every game, but then I realized there's Tanya out there who has to win every game. I'm curious, were you like that always, growing up? Were you always into games? Can you give us a little bit of snapshot of who was Kid Tanya?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question. I actually came about like this huge passion for games that I have, like not right from the very start. Like I enjoyed playing games. As a family, we played games occasionally. It was a lot of like kind of friends of family as well who played games that we would go over when our parents would visit their parents, and then we would play, and I'd learn about like Stop Thief. And so I have a lot of great memories of games. I always loved like Mastermind and Clue, and games that were kind of amazingly now for me, the portfolio that I manage as part of my job. But it's more of those kind of classics as I was growing up, and I always enjoyed it. But did I have a shelf or a collection of games like I do now back then? No, I certainly did not. So I don't think this was really a thing back then. People would have a shelf of games. Now it's not unheard of to hear people owning, the real geeks of us own like, 1,000 games or more. But yeah.
Because you recently had moved, and if I recall, you needed like a moving truck for your stuff and then another moving truck for your games. Is that right?
Well, I needed a big truck to move everything. Let's just say that.
Unbelievable. So as a kid, were you thinking you were going to become somebody that was designing or scouting for the next things in play?
Yeah, like often people will ask me questions like that, or like, are you going to invent a game? And I enjoy curating games. I enjoy kind of looking what's new, what inventors are designing lately. That's more my thing than I was never like, I know, David, you had like a creative corner growing up and things like that. And I was always like, my brother was into Lego. I built like houses, very, very kind of straightforward houses. And so he would do like spaceships and like all of these other kinds of things. And I was like not into that. So it wasn't until I started my working career as a teacher. So it was when I was teaching, I loved games. So I would have games in my classroom, and I quickly realized that having games and puzzles, like mechanical puzzles in my classroom, really attracted my students to my classroom. And then they also became like a vehicle for me to actually teach and reach my students. So that was really, I thought I would, well, when I was younger, I didn't know what I wanted to do, all sorts of things. Then when I went into university, because my marks were so high, I was like, people were like, you can do anything. So I was like, people were like, you should be a doctor. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go be a doctor. So I went to like a science oriented university there because I loved science and math. That was my main study in high school. And then I went there and I was like, what? I don't want to be a doctor. What was I thinking? Kind of like came into my own. And then my dad was a teacher. And I think for the longest time, I was trying to be not what my parents were. And then eventually I was just like, I love kids and I really want to teach. So then I got a mathematics, like a Bachelor of Science in Mathematics, but I used that to get into teaching. So, and it wasn't until I really started collecting when I was a teacher and also raising a family that I really started like getting into collecting games and playing a lot of games kind of thing.
Yeah, collecting. I recall your puzzle collection, and I don't mean like the 1,000-piece puzzles that you put together to make a picture. I'm talking like the brain teasers where you've got to like unlock a box. Can you tell us a little bit about your the puzzle collection, because it is like bins and bins and bins of puzzles.
Yeah. So when I was teaching, I got into something called Snap Math Fairs, and I got into them because one of my closest friends was the science teacher, and he was doing like science fairs. And I was like, I want to compete with that. So I want to do a math fair, but I don't know what that even is. So I started, at the time I was writing math problems for a national mathematics contest that is well known here, used by the University of Waterloo to kind of find the up and coming mathematics minds. And so they had invited me to write these problems with them. So I was doing that. So I started asking to them because they came from all over the country. And I was like, who's heard of a math fair? And then the director of it was like, I don't know what a math fair is, but there was an article recently written. Let me get it for you in a math journal. So he got it. The professors who were creating this math fair initiative were out in Alberta and I'm in Ontario. So I was like, oh, I'm going to call them. And I started doing their thing called Snap Math Fairs. And it was like, it was a game changer for me teaching, because it really had my kids playing with mathematics, loving it, developing phobias around it. So I really started, they asked me if I'd launch it in Ontario. So I started speaking at conferences and whatnot. So, and a big part of that were these mechanical puzzles, what you speak of, like what you mentioned, David. So not jigsaw, but more like a Rubik's Cube and secret box openings and things like that. And then there were at this one point, there was a conference that would go from like North America to Asia to Europe. And it would be this conference that would go around. It was all the creators and whatnot. And I was like, I really want to go there. Like, how do I get there? And you had to be like, you had to apply. You had to own 500 puzzles in your own collection. Like, this was for like serious puzzle people. So I eventually got invited to that conference. So I have a very small collection. Like, I have probably around, let's say, I'm guessing like 2,000 to 3,000 puzzles, which
is that all? That's a small collection.
They don't take the same real estate as my game collection does. But yeah, like I know people who own like 30,000 puzzles kind of thing. So I was like this small time collector, but I got to meet the creatives behind it, which is what I loved to do. So, and then my first job in the industry, when I moved from teaching to toys, it was super helpful because it was Think Fun, which is like a thinking company. The goal is to make the world better thinkers, and they love puzzles and I love puzzles. So that's how we connected.
Yeah, that's I believe how you and I actually had connected back in those days initially.
Yeah, we did.
And when I found out that there was an industry of play, you said, do you have any ideas? And it was one of those things where it was like a literal napkin sketch.
Yep.
Where it was like, oh, well, there's this idea as we're having, at a dinner and drawing things out on a napkin. And you're like, that is interesting. That's something that we may be able to do. I don't know, like, because now you're working for the largest game company in the world. You are seeing how many game concepts are you seeing on a yearly basis, or like in general, like how many ideas do you have to review?
It's probably in around 2,000, I would say, concepts. We see a lot a year. It's in a year. Yeah. Yeah. So it's a big, because when I worked, because I worked for some amazing companies like Think Fun, I mentioned, Mastermind Toys, a retailer in Canada, Marbles, the Brain Store. Like when I worked for these smaller companies, we would have a development season and a pitching season. But once we got our lines planned for the following, usually 2 years out, then it was like, okay, we need to develop now. So I'd take off my Inventor Relations hat, put on my development hat. And for 6 months or so of that part of the year, it would all be about developing the ideas that we had found in the sourcing part of the year. So, but with Hasbro, it's all year round. Like there's no kind of downtime where I would head into like a development role. I simply and solely do Inventor Relations in innovation, which takes a lot of different avenues when you work for a company this size. So when I, for instance, worked for 8 years at Think Fun. And when I was there, it was our whole line was mainly was from Inventors kind of thing. So it was the lifeblood of the company. And then we would get an idea and we would develop it internally. At Hasbro, there's like a huge team of designers kind of thing. And they do internal concepts, they do license concepts, they do inventor concepts. And so there's this whole, and plus being the biggest, we might work with a small company, a small innovation, like you never know. It's not just necessarily the kind of the invention companies or the single inventors. So it's a bigger breadth now that I work with. But yeah, it's exciting. I absolutely love it.
Nice. So with so many people showing you their ideas, how does somebody stand out during a pitch? What's the best practices for a good pitch?
Yeah, so that's okay. So there's best practices and then there's how you stand out. So there's like, that's almost like I could probably answer those in 2 different areas. So if I forget one, remind me because I'll talk and then I'll be like, what was I answering? So your first question is, how do you stand out? So that is, it comes from a combination of seeing so many concepts. Like I've been in the industry now for about 15 years. So, I wasn't always seeing 2,000 a year, but I've seen a lot of different kinds of concepts. So to stand out at some point, it's like, it's more rare, but it's like when you see something that you've never seen before, it's not just like an iteration or like, it's actually a completely new game mechanic or a new mechanism or a new way to play a game, then it's like, regardless if the team is looking for it, my kind of bells go off in my head because it's like, wow, that's surprising. And it's not easy to surprise me when I've seen so many through the years. And then the other thing is, because people will say like, how do you know? Because I'm like the gateway or the first filter. So people from externally pitch me, and then I decide which I think are most suitable for the company and for the teams. And then I turn into like you, and I pitch into the company. But I work with the games team on a daily basis. So I know the things that they're looking for when they pivot, what their strategies are. And so it's like, it's sometimes I could see the best thing and I'll pitch it, but there also has to be a place for it and a champion and some team to develop it. So, but knowing what those teams want also helps me filter what I'm looking for, kind of thing. So that's like, how do you stand out? It's like, well, you stand out if you've done something completely new and surprising. And then also you can stand out by doing a good pitch. So what is what is the best practices in pitches? I don't know, like, do you want me to, like, I kind of have some like tips. I don't know if you want me to go into them or.
No, that'd be helpful, because I know there's got to be a lot of white noise, and there's a lot of inventors that have an idea that want to bring that and they show it, and how are they going to come in and have the best chance at explaining their imagination to you? Are there things that they should have at the table when they come?
Yeah. So there's some things to do before you come to the table. Things like I always say, do your homework, know the company that you're pitching to, and make sure that what you have is a good fit for them, or at least that they're in the ballpark. Because sometimes we pivot and suddenly we're doing new things and you're like, whoa, I didn't know that. So it's also good to have a relationship with who you're pitching to, because the more you see them, the more they'll share, the more they get to know you and know your strengths. And then, there's just different things that I want you to succeed in the company. Like, I want concepts to come in and get licensed by us. So it's like, I'm always trying to like fit the pieces of the puzzle together. But doing your homework is really important. And knowing kind of like, what do they do? Like, where do they sell? Are they in specialty? Are they mass market? Are they on Amazon? Like, where is that? Where are they kind of showing up in the world? What's their company mission kind of thing? That often will direct things as well. What kinds of games do they do? That sort of thing. Where do they sit on the shelf when I'm in a store looking at their product kind of thing? What's around them? Where are they? So there's that. And then, of course, like making sure that your game is really good. It's well thought out. It's play tested. It's not, I always say, so David, you are the exception, because I will say, like, if it's your first, like, because people often say, like, Bakugan, for instance, was pitched on a napkin and it's like became one of the biggest brands. And it's like, yes, that's true. But the thing is, the person pitching that idea was known to Spin Master at the time. They were a known entity. So if I know you really well, absolutely pull out a napkin. I want to know your idea. But if I've never met you, and you're coming to me for the first time and all you have are napkins, like, not such a great way to start, kind of thing. So
should they have a prototype? I know there's like, when it comes to a prototype and you've got a vast different variety of games, sometimes it's more of like that plastic action, Hungry Hippo kind of thing. And then sometimes it's like a deeper, like Euro strategy. What is the importance of a prototype, and how far fleshed out does something need to be in order to convey that information?
Yeah. So the prototype is important because what we will likely do if we're interested is get a prototype in order to test it. A prototype as well, especially if it's a mechanically driven, more toyetic game, like, let's say Hot Tub High Dive or, Blowfish Blow Up, those kinds of more toyetic mech games. If your game is promising to do something like shoot a rocket 10 feet in the air or something, then we need to make sure that can be done. Or if it's something completely new, like Porcupine Pop before it became Porcupine Pop, and this like kind of burst of darts going in all directions, it was like you could pitch that to me on a storyboard, but it's much more effective than pitching it to me with a prototype. Because the team, if they see a storyboard, they'll be like, yeah, but can they produce, like, can this actually be done? And then if you prove it out, even though it's not in final game form, there has to be some sort of proof of concept. If it's just like a chicken with its head popping off, we know how to do that, but that also means that we've also seen that before. So you have to have something new about it. So if I were you, I would, because also the teams are developing a lot of things at the same time, the things that they'll gravitate towards, if they are like not necessarily like revolutionary, but they're a good game in the line, the further along it is, the better. Because what they like to do is bring it in, test it amongst themselves, put it into our fun lab testing, which is where we get like people either across the country or even in our area to like come in and play it. Like that's an important next step. So a prototype is important, but at the same time, card games, board games, all of those things, they don't have to be polished. Like they don't have to have gone through some sort of art, through some sort of artist to make it look really great. Does it help? I mean, if you got a really cool theme with an artist, it does because it provides energy, but is it necessary? It's not. So that's kind of like with the prototype, what you are, what we're expecting from you. And it's just a little bit harder when it's more on paper and we can't really see it, because being on paper and actually realizing it is two different things. And like you may think, oh, well, good. This is a Play-Doh idea because we own Play-Doh. So you might want to show me a Play-Doh. We did Don't Step in It, which included Play-Doh. We've had like other games in the past, like Grape Escape and others that are involved with Play-Doh. So you might come to me with a Play-Doh sketch. And then I look at it and I'm like, okay, but Play-Doh, especially if it's extruding Play-Doh, do you understand how difficult that actually is? And so, And if you're saying it's for 4-year-olds, can 4-year-olds actually maneuver this extrusion mechanic? So it's that kind of stuff where like, I'm not really sure that can be done in the form that you're doing it. So you would need to flesh that out more.
It's super helpful. With a lot of startup inventors, and also in our experience, I can testify to if you can hand somebody something that they get to play, that imagination transfers a lot quicker.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we could have like an item from 2 different vendors. Let's say it's like our plumber pants game, where it's like a water squirting mech that has a trigger that causes that to happen. And then 2 people show it to me differently on a sketch. It's very different. Like, how does the water fly? When does it happen? Like all of those things will get realized when you actually build out the prototype, that it could go in different directions if it's just a storyboard. So I would say a prototype is really, really important.
What about video? Oh, sorry.
My God, Branson, you read my mind. I was like, so if we're talking about a pitch, and this was occurring, this has evolved to where the videos have evolved to today, very differently than when I started in the industry back when, because there would be an occasional video. But we would always identify inventors at a show because they'd be the ones walking around with their large suitcases in tow, and they were trying to like manage getting through all the aisles and whatnot at Toy Fair, because they had this like big case that they were, pulling behind them. And now these days, even before the pandemic, an inventor could be someone walking around with an iPad, in their backpack. So videos are extremely important, which became amplified when we were unable to meet in person. And more so would meet in like Zoom like this. So I would say the video is the most important thing that you should have prepared for a pitch meeting with us, because the main, and I have some, like, I've been working on this because I want to like publish some things about like what makes a good sizzle video. And so I put a lot of thought into this. But the reason why it's so important is because, you know how I mentioned that things will come into me and then I turn around and pitch them into the company. So that is done best through video, because you would create the video with your energy and your knowledge of the game and your passion for it. And it will shine through, hopefully, in what we call a sizzle video. And there's no better way to pitch something inwards into the company than having you individually pitch it rather than me trying to do my best at it, kind of thing. So you can just portray so much. And then too, that the nugget that you gave us in the sizzle video is what you want represented presented as it's decided upon versus relying on me of like, am I going to present your presentation right? Am I going to like read through the rules and understand them completely? Like all of those things, even though I do that in order to pitch into the company, it's much better on a video.
It's a hard balance though. Like when we're putting videos together, there's that, I want them to get the idea in 30 seconds, in 45 seconds, but I want them to know how to play the entire game as well. And sometimes to get the whole rules, suddenly we're like at a 5-minute video. So can you maybe touch a little bit on the balance of like sizzle versus conveying an entire idea? Like what is probably better to do, or like, are there any ways to best approach that?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we like sizzle videos to be around 2 minutes, right? And a new inventor I was working with just the other day said, I went and asked somebody if they could do a video for me, a 2-minute video, and the bill, like the quote came to around $15,000. And we were like, oh, no. That is not what we want. Like, we do not want you to go spend multiple grands of money to get a sizzle video. We feel like if you've got a smartphone, you can do a video. That's what we're asking for. So in terms of length and what to add to that video, this is what I say. So I typically will say 2 minutes, up to 2 minutes. If you can't convey a game for Hasbro within that time frame, maybe it's too complicated for Hasbro. However, Hasbro took over Avalon Hill last year, and Avalon Hill is in that more Euro game space, which is like more like the games I have here on my left. So those games might take longer than 2 minutes, but they really shouldn't go over 5. So you can't actually include all the detail into what you might want to say. So what you have to think of is what's going to hook me on the game. Like what is the point of difference? So I kind of have like a list of things that I say you should have in your sizzle video. Do you want me to go over those?
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah.
Okay, so one is the time length, 2 minutes. If it's a typical family, kids, preschool game for Hasbro, it really shouldn't be longer than 2 minutes. And then again, if it's more Avalon Hill, there's a little bit more of a little bit more flexibility because they will patiently watch through a 5-minute video because it might be more complicated.
So it's kind of like a direct correlation between the length of time it takes to play a game or how long the video could be.
Yeah, exactly. So always start the video with who you are. So I'll just do some basics. So there should be like a name of you, who you are, and your game name kind of thing. That should be always up in the upfront. And some people do it quickly by just flashing their logo if they have one, and that's totally fine. Or they'll just say, "Hi, my name is," and then it go through it that way. So that doesn't need to take up a lot of time. The most important part is explaining the game. So I need to know things like how many players, how long does a full game typically take? Like some of those more logistics. Is it competitive? Is it cooperative? Like what are the kind of the guidelines of your games? And then I need to know, like, what is the goal? How do I win? Like, if it's a game, unless it's cooperative, but even then there's a cooperative goal. I need to know, like, always the first thing is like, okay, what am I going into having? Like, I want to know this game. So how do I win the game? That's like an important piece. And then what's often sometimes people miss, which is really important, is take me through a turn of a game. There's always turns, typically a team turn or a single player turn, whatever the turn is for your game, take me through a turn. And you can do that by setting it up and like actually like taking me through. It could be a mid play, it doesn't matter, but I need to have a sense of what the game is about. And the best way to do that is by taking me through a turn of how to play. And then make sure in that you highlight the best features of the game. So what makes yours unique? What makes it different. If you're going for Hasbro, then you're looking at likely mass market. So what's mass marketable? Like, what would a mass market consumer just go nuts over with your game? Is it something the mechanism does in that exciting moment when it gets triggered and goes off? Is it like, if it's a family game, is it the fun of something happening with the game that causes everybody to laugh? Like, what is it that is like its best features? Make sure that you're including that when you're explaining how to play the game to me. And then the frame shouldn't be on you. It can be on you. Like, you can be in front of a table explaining the game, but I've had it where people, like, they're a talking head, and that's not very good. It would be better if you're like a talking head, but you're standing there in front of the game and showing me the game, show me the components. What is it that is like, what does your game look like? Is it cards? Is it pieces? Is there a mechanism? Show it to me in action. And make sure, as we mentioned before, like if it's going to do something awesome, show that, and make sure you have that proof of concept that actually shows that you have, if it's shooting something 10 feet in the air, that it actually does that. So that's really important. Another thing is, don't use text or captions at the same time as showing me something you want me to see visually in the video. Because I'm either a text or captions are visual, and then there's a thing you want me to see with there's visual, and I can only put my eye on one thing. So either make it a voiceover where I can listen to you with this part of my senses and watch the video. That's fine. But some people are nervous to put their own voices in, so they use captions. That's fine. Just make sure that you're not, because oftentimes I'll be reading the words, and then suddenly I've been like totally missed what you were showing me in the background, or I'm looking at what you're showing me in the background and I don't read the words. And then suddenly I'm like, well, what's the game about? Because I didn't read the words. So make sure you're not kind of showing me those both at the same time. For card and board games, this comes up a lot. Like, is it okay if we do a recording of Tabletop Simulator or one of those platforms? And that's completely fine. It can be a digital show, like a digital components that you're showing me. Just know that later on, if we're interested, we're going to ask you for something physical. Also, music comes up a lot. Like, is music fine? I actually love when people add music to the game. I don't require it. It's not necessary, but I've seen it done really well where music adds like this awesome energy or like theme. The theme is enhanced by the music. Just make sure it's not too distracting from me understanding. So if it's like too loud and I can't hear, or if it's just plainly too loud, then sometimes music can get like overbearing. And then, or if it's like, you're trying to show something really hip and cool, but you choose music from like the 1900s or 1910 or something. And I'm like, wow, that totally did not match with what you were going for in the theme of the game. So like, make sure it enhances the experience and not takes away from it. And then also, have fun. Like, let your passion shine through. I love that. I see so many videos. It's sometimes just enjoyable to me to just like, wow, they just did a really great video. And we've identified talent from the types of videos that people have done because the games are good and they like nailed the videos. So we kind of just want to see how much you love the game. So like, try to have fun with it and just like go for it in the video. And then finally, I will say, but if there's something in the game, like let's say I don't know you well, but you've already got 50 published games on the market, then share that with me. Or let's say that you are a NASA engineer and you took something from that, like your expertise, and you put it in a game. We love that. We love it when you have an expertise, especially in that engineering space, and that when you bring it to us, we're like, got it. Like if they know that, they can definitely know this. And so and then we just have to figure out how we do it in a toy grade thing. But
it's not rocket surgery.
No, that's for sure. So yeah, so it's like those things, or if you're like, hey, I noticed this going on in the world and this is trending, so this inspired me to do this, then tell me that, because then it shows me that you are like aware of the trends like we pay attention to internally. You're tracking the same thing. So all of that kind of background information is also important.
It helps to do that homework ahead of time to kind of know what's out there. Having a design firm as well as being an inventor, I don't know how many times, a simple Google search could have prevented a lot of unnecessary development. I'm assuming there's been many times people have pitched you something that is out there and very known. Does that happen often?
Yeah, like a lot of times people will like kind of know about it and then they'll have a response like, yeah, I know that, but mine does this or something. Then sometimes it can be the slightest of difference that really makes the difference. There's been grand companies built on things where they're not necessarily creating innovative gameplay, but they're doing a grand job at marketing it the way that they are. So, but yes, that can prevent a lot. Like it's a no go if you're like, show me something and it's exactly like something out there, especially if it's like mechanism driven, because like if there's already something doing that out there, then it could be of less interest to us. And then also if you've got to, in mass market especially, you got to think, okay, let's say we're in a Walmart game aisle. Like, how do I stand out to a shopper who's not there necessarily to buy a game? They're there to buy a birthday gift or to do something fun with their family, but they're not a game connoisseur. So how do we attract their attention? And if the preschool aisle is completely like all about cats and dogs, it's really hard to stand out with another cat and dog product. So maybe it's a llama or a unicorn or something else. But then again, like as soon as everybody hops on unicorns, then it becomes hard to stand out. So it's really important to know your space from like a game mechanic standpoint, a gameplay standpoint, as well as, but less important, because if you come in with a dog and we don't want to do dogs, we can easily change it. But also from just knowing what's trending, what would be different in that aisle where you hope that your game would live.
So you mentioned both mechanics and theme there in like that last sentence. Can you maybe touch a little bit on the mashup of the mechanic and the theme, like, and how those should go together?
Yeah. So and again, for mass market, we're all about needing to communicate to a consumer, right? And the ease of doing that communication is super important. So how do we communicate easily? One is through the theme, and the mechanic is how we could appeal to them. So a theme is like something that they will recognize and maybe have like an automatic connection to. So for instance, a theme around unicorns, if their kids are really into unicorns or princesses or dragons or whatever, then that becomes like that theme is very, very important. Where it marries well with a mechanic is when it makes sense within the mechanic. I don't know how many times I've seen a game, and in preschool, we're really particular about this. But like, let's say we bring in a game that is around dragons, dragons washing dishes. And it's kind of like, that's not what kids go to when they think of dragons washing dishes. So there's a disconnect there. And not only that, but washing dishes as an aspiration can be pretty lame kind of thing. There
goes my dragon washing dishes game.
Yeah. No, still, yeah. So it's like, and not to say that we should now therefore discount all dragon doing dishes, because I've seen some where somebody does it in a brilliant way, but they should really make sense. They should make sense to the end consumer, because sometimes what happens is people create an awesome mechanism, but then they put a theme on after, but the theme doesn't really connect well with what the mechanism does, or it's doing something that consumers have either no connection with or no knowledge about. So then it's just confusing. So we have to be really particular with what we're doing, because we only have seconds to actually attract their attention. So how do we do that? And a mechanism will do it by kind of sometimes by how exciting it is, how different it is, and then sometimes by the fact that it delivers the theme really well.
What does it mean to license a product?
So it's funny because that word is used in multiple ways, so it can get confusing sometimes. But in terms of inventor relations, like, so you're an inventor, you created something, so that's your IP, your intellectual property, and then you are looking to, you can do two things. You can self-publish it, maybe put it on Kickstarter or something like that, or put it out into the world yourself. Or you can license it, which means you're going to give your IP, you're going to license your IP to a company who will then pay you for that IP, but then the company does all the work at putting it out into the world. So they're the ones manufacturing it, developing it, manufacturing it, putting it on shelf, getting it into all the territories, doing the translations, the localizations, the sales, all distribution, all of that. So it's almost, you could look at it like how they do it in the book industry, which is more well known, which is an author writes a book and then they give it to a publishing house who then would pay them royalties for writing that story for them. And so for us, it's the same way. If we license a game, we would pay a royalty on the number of units or the number of dollars that we actually make from the game. We would give you a portion of that.
And it's a beautiful model for, a lot of the game inventors I know have got another job. They're not full-time game inventors, but then there are a handful of those of us that are, developing enough games to where you can make it worthwhile. But one of the beauties of licensing off a game to a brand is you get to go on about your life and you're not carrying the burdens of distribution and the marketing and all of that somebody like Hasbro, a powerhouse, the leading game company in the industry, you launch something, it suddenly has got some exposure. Are there some titles that you have had the privilege of working on that you're more proud of, or some fun stories around some of the games that you've got to be part of those launches? I really am proud of everything that I get to the market that is an inventor idea that I had to do with the contract and finding it and negotiating the contract and coming to a deal and things like that. There's so many of, I'm proud of all the ones that I do because all of them are very, very much hard work, and it's a success point. Since you're asking me about is there any of them that stand out, I remember, so I worked for the companies I mentioned before, which were all very much about thinking and very specialty companies. And so making the world better thinkers. So when I was interviewing for the Hasbro position, one of the things that came up was your experience is all in the specialty market. Do you think that you can also source ideas for a mass market company like Hasbro? And I was like, okay, I've been doing this successfully with these other companies because it's not about what I like. It's about what the companies are looking for and what the companies need. So I source those type of games because those are the companies that I was working for. And I do obviously have definitely being an educator and coming from starting out with Think Fun. I have a soft spot for those types of companies that do those types of games. But give me a chance. I can source mass market because I have the community, the inventor community I know, and I know how to do this kind of thing. So obviously they took a gamble and hired me in the position. And my first contract to market
was a game by Don Ullman and Bob Driscoll called Don't Step in It, which is a game about being blindfolded and having like poop piles on a mat, Play-Doh poop piles on a mat, and then walking through it and not trying not to.
They were made of Play-Doh,
right? So, Play-Doh. Not stepping in those Play-Doh poop piles, and so I was like, "Here you go, Hasbro, proof that I can do more mass market." At that time, that's what we were after: more mass market games. They don't have to be the ones that are going to make the world better thinkers. And at that point, it was all about. It was all about kind of bringing joy in a way to families. And this was a preschool game. And a lot of preschoolers think potty humor is funny. So and then it turned out that we were a part of this poop craze, which was a thing that I didn't ever think I would be a part of. But there was this poop craze happening at Toy Fair where we were one of several other companies that were relaunching these kind of poop-oriented games. So suddenly we became a part of the poop craze, which was kind of fun.
Changing the world.
Change the world, one game at a time. That's right. One step at a time. Yeah. And then another one more recent. There's some that are coming out that I can't speak of, but a couple more recently are Kablab that just hit the market this fall. It's the first party game that I've done with Hasbro. And it's the first one that Hasbro's done in a really long time. And I'm super excited that we're back to let's just put good play experiences into the world. Whereas at one point we were very much chasing more social media oriented games. Now we've moved away from that and we are just trying to do good games. And I love Kablab. I've had some awesome fun playing it. And so it comes from Andrew and Jack Lawson from Australia, two brothers there. And they've done other games like Make and Break and Moods and other games in the industry. But I was so excited that we were launching their Kablab game. So there's things like that when it takes the company in a different direction or a new direction, or coming back to, because obviously we have a lot of incredible games in that party space. But when it's we haven't done one for a long time, and then you're launching something new like that in the category, I just hope it does well so that Hasbro will want to continue doing more like that, more party games kind of thing, because I think it's important. So yeah, that's another one that comes to mind.
It's amazing being an industry where, and I love that you gave shout outs to the inventors of those games, because it's an amazing industry where somebody can have an idea, put together that all important video that you talked about, and get it in front of somebody such as yourself, and suddenly there it is on the shelves of Target and Walmart and in homes everywhere. Are there certain things that inventors should look out for, like pitfalls that they really need to avoid that might save them a lot of trouble when they're trying to get an idea out there? What are some of the dangers or pitfalls that an inventor might avoid?
I know to be an inventor anywhere, I can imagine, but definitely in this industry, is you have to have really thick skin. You will get rejected more than you will get accepted, or your ideas. And you really have to, because I am I love people and I want to befriend people. And so it's it's really hard for me personally to be rejecting all of the time. And it's so exciting when a few of them come through and we actually want to take them further. So it's as hard as it is as hard for me, but I completely believe it's harder on you, on your side of the table, because you're the one who put in so much time and energy and love into creating something, and then somebody like myself comes in and rejects it, but you got to remember it's for different reasons. It could be a great game. It's just not right for Hasbro. So try not to take those personally and move on. Sometimes it's about the stars aligning as well, because if you came to me with another poop social media game at this moment, it would be harder for you to get in than it was 3 years ago. So it's all about timing. Or like I wasn't looking at card games 2 years ago because the teams didn't want to do card games. And now the teams are really excited and looking at different card games. So it's all about timing. So I just, you got to be someone who's thick-skinned and doesn't take it personally. And if we reject it, then you just kind of have to accept that and move on. I can always tell the professionals from the more inexperienced inventors, because the inexperienced inventors will either take it personally or they will like hold on to it and say, but you haven't looked at it like this, or have you? And it's like, I get it, but we have, and I'm afraid it's just not right for us right now. So you kind of have to move on. I think it's all about the relationship and the partnerships than it is about the individual ideas. So it's so don't get up too upset and like move on, but let's work on, our relationship or our partnership rather than you just focusing on kind of the one idea or the ideas that we kind of pass on. So that's really important. And some other things are like, some other pitfalls or things that are often like a little bit suspect in my mind when I hear them is things when people come and say, oh my God, we have the next Monopoly, or, oh my goodness, we have the next Rubik's Cube. I really try to understand what it is you're trying to say. If you're just saying like, I got the next best thing because it has the potential, I believe, to be super successful, then that's what you're really referring to about Monopoly. Because right now, Monopoly is the largest game brand in the world. But if you came to me with a path game based on real estate today, well, we already have Monopoly. But even then, I probably we've moved far past path games typically. So we're not really looking at roll and move type of games, which are also called path games. So, and Rubik's Cube is like, that's a golden egg right there. Like that is, so if it's another brain teaser, great. Yes, show me. But if it's like, it's always, those words are always a little bit suspect, because I think you just mean like, I think my thing has a lot of potential, but don't refer it to some of the others, because you probably I don't know who would have the next Monopoly kind of thing. That's a big statement to say.
It's bold.
Definitely.
Are there any easy points of entry for inventors trying to get a start in the industry?
Good question. So David, you and I have this amazing kind of story where you and I met at a conference, not within the toy and game industry, but at Hatch. And then we met, and I was just looking for creative people that could, I always do this. I'm not just looking within the toy and game industry. I'm also looking for just creatives, not like period, stop right there. Like, because maybe they have potential or the desire to create in the industry. And you were like one of those, oh my God, so beautiful. One of these people. Like when I met you, I was like, oh my gosh, this guy is like off the charts creative. And I still say that today, now that we've been working together for so many years. And it's, it is, when you did that, you were like, oh, there's this thing called the toy and game industry. And I was like, yeah, you should come to ShyTag or
life-changing.
Pop as it's now. Yeah. And like, that's where you can learn about the industry and really accelerate your networking and all of those things. And now you're like one of the most well-known inventors in the industry that everybody's working with, and you've published multiple games every year. And so it's kind of like, it's what you do with it.
Thanks for changing my life, by the way. I didn't know that. I didn't know there was a gaming industry and that people were willing to license. But it's
right.
It's like that gaming habit. You pull the lever and a coin comes out. You've got to keep pulling.
And it's so good. So yeah. So ShyTag is because we all go, and I can't wait for it to be in person again. So it's coming up the end of it's always in November, and it is about it's virtual at the moment because of the state of the world. But so ShyTag, which has been rebranded as People of Play or POP, is a conference where Mary Cousin is this beautiful individual whose goal is to like help inventors and connect inventors with companies as well as educate new inventors. So she does a conference. There's a similar one out of the UK called Mojo Nation, where Billy Langsworthy is doing the same thing there, more in the European kind of bend, but certainly he's very virtual. They both have really great newsletters. So I would say in person is a great, easy entry. I am one person, and thank goodness I have Naomi Brignatelli, who is on my team now. So there's two of us doing games, but we can only see so many new people in a year kind of thing. But if you've made efforts to travel, especially, or attend these conferences that are meant for new inventors, then that means something to us because you've put in the effort to actually want to go to Chicago or spend some time on the virtual conference.
That's why it's important to have that good video, that 2-minute video. So
yes, exactly.
It's easy for you to go through a number of those. And one of the things I think that's a little bit intimidating for people coming into an industry is like, well, I've got this idea. I'm afraid to put it out there. What if somebody steals it? There's all this other competition. But one of the things that I've found in my personal experience is that this is an industry that people are for each other in a way that it's like you get done with the show and you're there with your quote unquote competitors playing games till 2 a.m. And if there are places that people say, oh, it's not for us, but maybe try these guys over here. That stuff happens a lot in this industry. So it's definitely I'd say a more for each other industry. There's still things that happen, but it's a more for each other industry, I think, than most.
It's a very friendly industry. Like some of my dearest friends work for other competitors, and we're all going after the same thing. But at the end of the day, we're just good people that like other good people, right? And we're trying to do the best we can, and we want to be the first and find the best idea. We're all after the same thing, but we're not going to stab each other in the back over it. We all tend to play fair kind of thing. And so it is true that when you go to an event, like we all go to the same ones. I was going to say the Toy Fair, New York Toy Fair is important if you can go there. If you're game centric, Gen Con is a place where you can meet companies as well. There's other ones like Essen in Germany is a great game fair that we all go to. So we're all going to the same places, and we're meeting with the same people, like the inventors. So it is very much a friendly industry, and we're trying to do the best we can for our companies, and we're all hoping to get the next best thing, and we work in order to do that. But at the same time, it's a very friendly industry for sure.
It's well, even your job title, that was the Senior Director of Inventor Relations and Innovation for Hasbro Games. So you're appointed to be somebody that gets to talk to all the outside people, that you're actually hunting. You're like a game scout trying to go out and find these, like you want to see the next games, all of the ideas that are out there possible. And it's amazing to me that is even a job title, for so many, a lot of the companies have got, there's no other Tanya Thompson, but it's like different versions of inventor relations. But it is nice that places like ShyTag or People of Play do have that concentration of game scouts all in one place.
Another way that you could actually most easily reach Hasbro, and right now it's in the U.S. The jurisdiction is the U.S. only, but we are working to go global very soon. Is our website, our portal, for outside people because you might not be able to get to Tag to see me, or you might not be able to travel. And it's called spark.hasbro.com, or even if you Google Spark Hasbro, it'll get you to where you need to go. And there is a portal that you can actually sign into and then pitch your ideas there without having to have a connection. But we will see it, and I've actually licensed games from that portal. So it's a worthwhile thing because it will get reviewed as well. So just, check out spark.hasbro.com for sure.
And that's awesome. And we'll be sure to put that into the show notes as well for an easy link. Tanya, this has been an unbelievable dive in to like the mechanics behind the scenes, some best practices. I feel like this is like a master class on pitching to a game scout as far as the type of content that I wish I could have listened to this about 7-8 years ago before the kind of that trial by fire, just diving in, but. Thank you for jumping in and going through all this. Before we go, there's a couple of questions, random fire questions, rapid fire we want to just throw at you.
All right.
So what Branson's got here is a hidden roll die, and he's going to roll this for you, and it's going to populate some questions on our end. And so really just some of the first things that come to mind here, I don't think you can get a wrong answer. Maybe you can.
Okay. Maybe I can. Let's see. I'll be the first.
All right, we've got the sword here. Competitive spirit, and this is funny, of all the people, that's the competitive spirit. What specific game or game types must you win? You have to win.
Ooh, you see, I am very competitive, but truly when I want to play, and I want to always play hard, I never go kind of in lightly. But for me, it really is all about the fun. Like I love getting people together around the table, or I guess the Zoom room, but I prefer the table, to actually play games and interact with them. And like, I think you can really tell a lot about a person by the way they play games. So I don't know if there's any in particular that I must win, unless maybe, I guess, no, it's not even a Hasbro game because I've lost Hasbro games with other people. So, I don't think there's any. I just really do want people to have fun, but I am going to play hard for sure.
Yeah, I'm going to answer this for Tanya. She must win all of the games. That's one of the things I do appreciate about, like, when you talk about getting around the table and the different types of games, is you do have a knack for knowing a person and knowing what game would fit them.
I do love doing that.
Yeah. So I'm just going to throw this out here. Like, if you need to know what game to get next to for somebody, Tanya's one to ask.
Yeah, I do enjoy that.
All right, Tanya, roll through Branson again. All right, $. If money was no object, what game experience would you try to create? You could take an existing game and do something with it, or just something completely new.
If money were no object. So there's a game we have that's it's like a bestseller in Germany, and it's called Lupin Louis. And I think it's like one of the best skill and action games that ever was. And I feel like that could be elevated some way, like not completely digital, because it needs to stay physical. But I feel like there's something there that we could add to, like, kind of blow the roof off of it, kind of thing.
Oh, circus ride.
Oh, that's good.
I want to ride on looping Louis or looping Chewie as the Star Wars. I would like to blow that off the charts. So.
Oh yeah, that would be good. We should talk to Brent about that.
I'm in, by the way. If I volunteer as tribute to take part in that build.
Okay, cool. To the death.
All right, one more. Let's see what else we can get here. All right, lightning bolt. What genre currently? And I know you already excluded excrement games, no more poop games. But what genre now would you like to see more games? What are we short on in
games?
the industry? Or even for our culture?
So there's this thing happening where we've just all, and it's not over yet, but we've all gone through this, like the whole world has gone through this whole, pandemic, and it's changed things, right? And I think people are really craving, real personal, authentic connections with other people. And I think that, and I'm not saying this from a Hasbro standpoint. I'm answering this personally, but I love the games right now that tend to be more conversational, where I'm sitting down with my family if they're in my bubble, and we're talking about like really awesome big questions, or like just questions that make you think. Like, if you could donate $1 million to any place or charity in the world, where would you put it? Like those kinds of questions where you hear what people believe and what they think, and where they're at, kind of thing. I do feel like you come away from just having this really amazing connection, which I think board games in general do, which is why I love them so much. I raised my family on board games, and it helped in so many ways. Like, I think every family should play board games, especially well before the teenage years, so that you can get into the teenage years and still connect with your kids. But I think right now it's like going beyond just this is how you win, even though you say that I'm super competitive, but more in like where it's about connection and authenticity. So
the families that play together stay together.
100%. Absolutely.
Yeah. Even last night we had busted out, was it Speak Out? And we had a good old time with the kids, and a lot of drool. But it's so, unfortunately, the dog came
fun.
up and went to lick my face when I had the mouth guard in, and I wasn't able to close my mouth. Thank you, Speak Out. But that was a good laugh as a family, and definitely built some bonded moments.
Oh yeah, 100 for sure. I have great memories of my kids just taking that game away and then playing it amongst themselves, and just. There's nothing better when I'm in the house. When I'm playing the games, okay, that might be better. But when they're playing their games just on their own with their friends or their siblings or whatever, and there's just like this constant laughter happening, it's the best. It's the best thing in the world. So yeah, I can imagine. No, so next time when I come see you, David, we should play Speak Out, and then I can meet your new dog and then watch him French kiss you.
Yeah, that'll be great. So again, Tanya, thank you so much for going through all this. I think listeners are going to just really dive into this and take to heart a lot of your advice.
Yeah.
Because this is, as far as like, top of the game, and for the amount you see and the amount of impact that the games you work on have around the world, I know you have got some good recipes as for what it really takes. So again, thank you. And, we will share that Spark website in the notes for those that are looking to submit some ideas to Hasbro. And until next time, let's play some games.
Let's play. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This has been Hidden Roll, the brains behind your favorite toys, games, and all things play. If you like what we're doing, the best way you can support us is to share us with your favorite brains. Please thumbs up, leave a review, and follow Hidden Roll Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or TikTok. You can also sign up for our newsletter at www.hiddenrollpodcast.com for a monthly sneak peek at our upcoming content. That's Hidden Roll, ROLE, podcast.com. Our episodes are available on all major listening platforms, or if you'd like to see our beautiful faces, all of our content is available to watch on YouTube. If you know of someone who would be a great fit to appear in our podcast, or if you'd like to learn the story behind any toy or game, send us an inquiry at hiddenrollpodcast.com/suggestions. Or let us know on our social media. We love to hear your feedback and ideas. Once again, special thanks to Pop, People of Play, the one-stop hub for all toy and game inventors. Visit www.peopleofplay.com to learn more. This podcast is also made possible by the continued support of the brains who never grew up, inventors of play, Streamline Design. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.